Hello and welcome to the 2020 virtual summit that I am doing called OkayCon. I couldn't call it anything else. I was very excited that the domain name was free, and also that I thought of it because we turned out okay. OkayCon, and I'm here with this is the very first one that we are presenting. I'm so excited to bring Janine Halloran onto the show. She is a beloved guest. You're now because this is also going to be on the podcast, that you're now a 5-time returning champion, which is like insane and very, very cool. So 5-time returning champion, kicking off our virtual summit. Janine Halloran is a licensed mental health counselor. She has got a website called encourageplay.com and another website called copingskillsforkids.com. Very, very good at helping kids and people through stressful situations. And we are in a stressful situation right now. So welcome, Janine. We are so glad to have you here to kind of help us through this and kick off the summit with us.
I'm glad to be here, and I can't believe it's been 5 times. That's crazy cakes.
That really is. It shows the value that you provide, that you bring. That's why, anybody who's a guest on the show has a lot of expertise, and I think a 5 times guest means really, really good things. So we can all learn from you, and I'm including myself in that. I'm excited to talk to you. For everybody, but also selfishly for me. And I guess I want to start with the question, how are you doing? How's your family doing? How are you doing through all of this? We are right now into what I think for most people is going to be the second week of, quote, homeschooling, and kind of everybody's stuck at home. It looks like we may be here for a couple months. And so we're into the second week of that. So how are things at your house, Janine?
So last week was a little bit dicey, just because it's getting used to this new normal. What are we going to do during the day? How are we going to figure out working from home? I'm working from home, but I typically work from home. But I typically work from home by myself. So to have everybody around me all the time, it's sort of like early summer. So that's been a little bit challenging. My husband's working from home. Our kids have been off since Friday the 13th of March. So
nice. What a day.
Yep. That's the first day that they were told to stay home. That was the day off. And then over the weekend, we got the call that it would be 2 more weeks. And then it was after that the governor shut down until the 7th. But I have a feeling, and I've read other places, that it's going to be longer. And, truthfully, I'm okay with that. We're doing okay. We figured out a strategy, and we figured out a rhythm of our day. So the way that I've set up my day for my children basically is I have 4 expectations for them. I want them to read. I want them to do 2 chores. I want them to move a little bit, and I want them to practice an instrument. That is it.
Cool.
If that takes an hour and a half, then they have the rest of the day to do with what they will. So that could be, maybe it's writing. My son really loves doing math problems. It's for me, that's not how I want to spend my time, but that's how he wants to spend his time.
Can I just ask, how old are the kids? What are their ages?
My son is 9 and my daughter is 12. So my son is in 4th grade. My daughter is in 6th grade. So she's a middle schooler.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is how we are spending our days. We're doing a lot of reading. We belong to, our library here actually has digital books. And normally you can only take out 5, but now they've extended it so you can take out 10. And my daughter and I were really excited.
Hey, that's so awesome.
It's oh my goodness, I can get this book and this book. They read voraciously. So this is an opportunity for them to do that. They also love to create things. They love puzzles. They've been helping me around the house doing different projects. We hung up curtains. We are starting our seeds for our garden. We are composting. So we're doing a lot of fun stuff together, but we're not truly doing a lot of worksheets or educational quote unquote stuff. Our school system is very clear about, this is not a time for new learning. This is a time to keep learning alive. Mm-hmm. And so they are giving us suggestions of things to do, but it's none of the work that they suggest. Even if all the kids do it all and they bring it all back in, it will not count towards grades. So it's suggested work, and they're updating it every week, and they're giving us links to science videos and different projects or activities that we can do. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But we're not going to sit and do worksheets, because that doesn't sound really fun. This is weird, and this is a stressful time. And I feel like for myself, that as a person who's trying to also consistently run my own business, to try and then also help them figure out school,
Yeah.
there's only so much bandwidth I have. So
it's a lot to put on people, right?
It's a lot. And so I read this article, I think it was in the New York Times, about this woman who said, I refuse to run a coronavirus homeschool. And I was like, oh, I'm right there with you. Cause we're playing a lot of video games, truthfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
I think the thing that's so important to recognize, speaking as a homeschooler, we've been homeschooling for 12 years now. And what you're describing is our homeschool. You do have expectations of the kids. It's not that it's the Lord of the Flies and they run around like little anarchists or something like that. But every day you do some things, you move, you do a chore, you read together. I mean, you play games together, whether they're video games or board games, or charades, something that doesn't involve a board at all. I mean, something that's just the two of you making up a goofy poem together. I mean, any of those things, any kind of turn taking, all the stuff that you talk about, all of that is learning, and it's crucial learning. And I would say now it's even more crucial than ever. So I am just going to go out on a limb here and applaud any school system that treats this in the way that your school system is treating it. I think that's outstanding. And I love too, I mean, you're a licensed mental health counselor. So like your whole jam is, how do we have healthy, happy, thriving people? And the way that we do that is not by sitting down and doing worksheets. It's not by having sort of a color-coded schedule and making ourselves or our kids sort of like go through this exact thing, because that's just a way to end up torturing yourself or feeling tortured. So can I just say the sun is moving across my window, and I feel like alternately so like I just keep getting these different like lighting and there's nothing I can really do about it. I decided I did want the window open for video, but anyway, it's distracting to me. So I hope it's not distracting for you watching, or you, Janine.
It's not distracting me at all. And here's the thing, like, you just got to roll with the punches. Like, if there is something that has taught us what we can and can't control, it is the situation. Like, there's lots of stuff out of our control, and we just have to go with it, and we have to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So whatever age your kids are while you're listening, think on that, the idea of what can we control and what can we not control. I think, Janine, I hope you'll join me in giving the listeners and the viewers permission to not do all those worksheets, to not, to try and make it a little bit more experiential, a little bit more, a little bit less structured in a curriculum sense. This isn't about checking boxes. This is about being on an adventure together.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, for those people who it's working for, like, if your color-coded schedule is giving you peace of mind and it's keeping everybody in your house good and in a good mental state, keep it up. Like, I have friends who are like super color-coded, and they're the teachers of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they don't have their classrooms. Their house has become their classroom, basically. And they're really good at what they do. They're very good at setting up a schedule, setting up expectations. And they're also really good about playing and being flexible. So, whatever is going to work for you and your kids, like, it's really interesting being in a bunch of Facebook groups. There's this one Facebook group that I'm in, and it was moms who have like kids with ADHD, and they were like, so this whole like homeschooling thing is phenomenal for my ADHD guy. And I'm like, yeah, do it up, do what works for you and your family. Like this, if this is working for them, fantastic. Whatever is going to get us through this time, because this is weird and it is strange, and we just have to figure out what's going to help us and help us walk through it, because we got to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is we don't have a choice. We can either get through it kicking and screaming, or we can kind of say, all right, what is this? What new learning is this opening up? And so the other thing I think to say before we kind of move on, is like, it's a hard thing. Like I think we're talking about a lot of real positives. And if you are not feeling those positives right now, I mean, I just want to share some empathy with you and some compassion with you. I will get off this call and I will have my moments of, oh my God, what are we doing? And then I will, go in for a hug to my husband, or I'll talk with one of my kids, or with a friend. I mean, I'm not having that problem right now because I'm talking with a friend. So the more we can kind of do these things that are self-compassionate and giving ourselves some self-care, I think the better, right? Like,
Absolutely. And so I'll be honest too. I had a meltdown last week. I'd
mhm.
like total crying jag. It happens because this is weird and strange and uncomfortable and stressful and full of anxiety. And so then I had to actually like relook at everything again. What can I do to help myself? What can I do to improve my self-care? What can I do what can I not do that is making me stressed out? And that actually was really helpful. I was trying to do too much and I
Yeah.
felt like I just couldn't figure it out. And so I just said, you know what? I'm taking a step back. I still obviously am running my business, but I'm totally stepping back what I can and can't do in this period of time, because there's
Yeah.
only so much time I have. And I want to take advantage of the time. I have my kids and they actually want to hang out with me.
Yeah.
So I want to do that.
Yeah. 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 I every morning I do, say, a 35-ish minute kind of stretching little yoga kind of routine. And we were in a Zoom call with family over the weekend, which is something we've established, is each week we're gonna, with extended family, people we don't see, quote unquote, except for maybe once a year. We're now trying to do this as well. So I would highly recommend that. But one of my relatives said, you're a yoga instructor. Would you do some teaching? Like, can we all sort of join you in your morning stretch or whatever? And I said I'd think about it, and I have thought about it. And I think the answer is going to be, I can't do that. And the reason is because it's too much. Like, that's private. I mean, I don't mean it's private because it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's private because I need that solitude. That's really why. And I feel so ungregarious and unhelpful. But on the other hand, it's just not a way that I can serve. I need that time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to protect yourself in that. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to do. I mean, I'm so thankful. We've been doing family Zoom calls as well. So that's been really helpful to be able to see everybody and to get a chance to catch up. My sister-in-law is a nurse, so we're hearing some really, tough things coming out of her job, but like we're trying to support her and
Mhm.
and getting our kids to see each other, because normally we get the chance to have the cousins get together, but being able to utilize any online streaming services or online face-to-face stuff as much as you can is phenomenal. My Zumba instructor is teaching classes virtually, and I took 2 Zumba classes this weekend and it was amazing. And
That's
it's
awesome.
exactly what I needed. And that's what really got me out of my funk too. Like I
Yeah.
had to take some Zumba.
Yeah. Yeah. So important to know. We get into funks too. Um, and this is how we are getting ourselves out of them, right?
Yeah.
So what questions are parents asking you right now, whether it's clients or actually, I suppose, parents and kids? Like, what questions are clients or their parents asking you right now? Like, what's coming up in this time?
What can I do? What should I do right now? So, how, I think it's this like scary piece of like filling the day with
Yes.
activities. And there's this piece that, it's okay to let them be bored and try and figure it out on their own. But this is also an opportunity for you to play together with them if you have a chance to do that. So
Mhm.
yes, I am working. Yes, my husband is working, but we have been trying to play games with our kids. So we've been playing board games at night or card games at night. So we've been playing Exploding Kittens and Bears versus
Yay.
Babies and Uno, all sorts of fun stuff like that. Yesterday, I played Arms with my son. It's a Nintendo Switch game, and it was my cardio for the day because you're literally punching things. Like you're using your hands and you're holding the controllers to punch. My back right now is so sore. Like totally my cardio. It was awesome.
That's so cool.
So just being able to this is the opportunity to have that unstructured playtime. I always talk about like make time for play. We have the time for play now. So then use it. Let's let them go crazy with the recycling bin. Give them paper and pens and paper and see what they do. You know what I mean? Like this is the time to let their creative juices flow. Let them write a story. Let them create their own board game. Let them, work together on something. Do some kindness projects, helping people out, however you can do that while still continuing to socially distance.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I actually just did a podcast episode that released the day that we're talking. It's WeTurnedOutOK.com/323. It's episode 323. And I called it something like, the name is complicated for me, but anyway, it's something like 28 or possibly 32, things to keep kids occupied, and they're organized by amount of adult input. So like if you, for example, are working and you need to be on a conference call, you need to be in another room, here's something that you can set out and your child can go for it, and you don't have to have any input at all the way on up to I've got 4 different levels, and the 4th level is stuff to do together. Because I think, as you're saying, we've got them home. We do have these hours to fill up. They cannot possibly all be filled with screen time, as much as they wish they could, and even as much as we wish they could. I mean, because we want that to be fun for them. But I think open-ended playtime and just kind of setting out materials and seeing what they do with it is a huge part of that. So another resource, WeTurnedOutOK.com/323. And actually, along that lines, have you got any new sort of blog posts or podcast episodes that are specifically referencing stuff like this that we can link to?
Absolutely. So I wrote a blog post on Encourage Play, awesome play ideas for families at home, because it was, people were asking like, what do I do now? What do I do now? Because our days are usually so scheduled. So like we don't have sports, we don't have instruments, we don't have dance, we don't have all these things that we're taking them to after school. So even that after school time that we typically, they're all of our time, you're home, you're like legit home. Coming up with even just some simple ideas, because I think sometimes, when you get into this like sort of panicked mode, some people freeze and they have no idea what to do. And so to give ideas, so I have some ideas for like little kids, like different things that you can do for younger kids, and then things that you can do for older kids and teens. So like picking a recipe out and baking it together, which I've done several times with my daughter this week, and over the last couple of weeks, and watching a TV show together and talking about it, watching a movie and talking about it. We watched The Princess Bride for the first time all together as a family. Hilarious. I just keep quoting it and they keep dying. And it's awesome. And then, even last night at dinner, I was scrolling through Instagram and I found Live from Snack Time. So it's you send in quotes that your kids have said, and it's hilarious. Like so funny. I was laughing so hard I was crying.
It's at Live from Snack Time. Is that what that's the account? Oh my gosh, I'm going to link to it.
I think so. I'll have to double check it but I remember, oh my gosh, we were sitting there. I'm not mad. I'm just hungry and I hate you.
Oh, is that all? Oh my gosh. So I actually, I want to come into another question that I had, that I thought of. And I think this is a good point, because like a parent could get really freaked out at the thought of their little kid saying, I'm not angry, but I want to kill you. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how the brain is wired. You talk about this so I've just been able to read your Coping Skills for Teens book. It is amazing. I think if you're listening and you don't have teens yet, you should still get it. I don't know, Janine, I have no idea when it's going to be available. I don't know if this has changed or moved that at all, but as soon as it's available, everybody listening, go out and get it. It's amazing. It has coping skills for teens, but they're also for us, and they can even be modified for younger kids. So I want to talk about how the brain is wired. The reason I bring up that book is because you do a great job of explaining that for, to help a teenager understand that. But I want to kind of bring it into this idea. I bet parents are seeing a lot of things right now that are freaking them out. Very typical behavior for young children, probably, but
Yeah.
also behavior that is really disconcerting to parents. And so what kind of behaviors could we expect to see that are typical and normal, but that might freak parents out?
So right now, everybody is stressed and everybody is anxious. So you will probably see some angry behaviors. You will see kids getting super easily frustrated. If you have kids who are, maybe even a little bit more sensory sensitive. So that's my son, actually. Noises bother him. So noises are bothering him more now. Or he's getting more easily frustrated with video games, or they're more worried about what's going to happen. They're asking a lot of questions. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're seeing all of this happen. You know what I mean? So you're told to be home from school. This is a big deal. So it
Yeah.
is okay for kids to freak out. It is actually okay for adults to freak out too. It's just, you got to do something different in order to prepare yourself to work with your kids freaking out.
Yes.
So it is fine. It is okay. It is expected. This is weird. This is unusual. This is strange. And behaviors will be heightened with any time of whenever there's uncomfortableness or stress or anxiety. You're going to see a rise in behaviors. You're going to see a rise. Maybe they're talking back to you. Maybe they're freaking, maybe they're stomping their feet. Maybe they're throwing things. It's going to happen. And what matters is how you respond to it. So it's what you have to keep in mind as the adult. You are having big emotions too. We're all there. We're all having really big emotions. But I actually just talked about this in one of my podcast episodes. It's going to be coming out. As the adult, we need to be the thermostat and not the thermometer in our house. We
Oh,
cannot, right? You can't
yes.
move around with what's going on. You don't match your kid. You stay calm. You get yourself in a place where you are calm, and then you interact. And that might mean you walk away, and that is okay at this point, because dude, we got to get through it. And if you need to walk away and take a few minutes in your room, take a few deep breaths, walk outside, get some cool air on you, whatever it needs to happen so that you can be calmer, but you need to set the tone. So
I
you get,
love that
yeah.
so much. Would parents notice an uptick, for example, in things like repetitive behaviors or things again that are normal coping mechanisms, or that are typical coping mechanisms, but that might look like something really scary to a parent? I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it could. And I think something else to keep in mind, especially if you have like little kids and they're playing in the sand, or they're playing in a sand tray, or they're playing with their figures, they're going to play this out in there,
Yes.
because that is how they work through stuff. So you're going to be freaked out because they're talking about coronavirus in their little sand tray. Don't worry about that, because that's them working through it. That's them talking their feelings and emotions out. That's them processing. So
Yeah.
that's okay. That's normal. That's typical. And you can help them sort of work through it. If they have questions, be able to answer in an age appropriate way, and just keep it calm and cool. Just keep it simple for the little ones. They don't need to know a ton. You know what I mean? They just need to know that
Yes.
you're going to keep them safe.
Yeah.
And we're going to be home, and we're going to have a good time, and we're going to this is keeping everybody safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. We were just talking about that last night with our teenager. We uh, we expect that he's going to be very thrilled about this. We're about to, well, not about to, but within the next week or so, we plan to break up a picnic table and burn it. And yeah, big bonfire, big bonfire over at the Kolps. But my son is like very excited to use a sledgehammer, and we were talking last night about how bad it would be if something terrible happened and we needed the emergency room at this point where hospitals are overstressed and all that kind of stuff. And we agreed that the way to handle this is not to say, listen, you could really hurt yourself with that sledgehammer, so we're going to ask you to take it easy, because if we have to go to the emergency room, blah blah blah, right? Like, so that's us catastrophizing rather than something that's suitable or comfortable for a kid. And instead what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, so we're going to be taking it easy. You know, we're just learning, we're just getting into this, and try and emphasize the sort of like calmness of it, but also the enjoyableness of smashing wood with a sledgehammer, just in a safe and appropriate way. And actually, we talked about the movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you've ever seen it, or
No.
anybody watching or listening. It's from several years ago, but there's a line in it that's always stuck with me. So Interstellar is about basically Earth ending. Like it's not a sustainable place anymore. And Matthew McConaughey plays like an astronaut who could figure out how to get off Earth. And there's someone who doesn't have children who's talking to him, who's really kind of angry with him because he hasn't told his child, who's I think sort of a middle schooler or maybe even a teen at the time. And they're like, why haven't you told her that you have the solution? And he's like, well, that would involve telling her what the problem is. And I can't do that. Like how do you tell a child that their world is gone? Like you just can't. So I feel like we all need to be kind of thinking about how do we approach these things with our kids? Because we can approach something that is stressful, but in a very positive way. As you say, Janine, keeping it safe, keeping it feeling like this is an adventure that we're on, and we're on it together, and we're going to be fine, and we're going to be able to be together, and it's going to be good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've been encouraging people to journal about this because this is unusual and different and sort of unprecedented for our time. There's never been a time in our lifetimes where this has happened. So
Yeah.
write about it. Think, like you as a little kid, your grandkids are going to be asking you about this period of time.
Yes, they will.
So write about it, talk about it, so you have something that you can look back on and say, oh my gosh, and I remember this day, my brother was driving me mad.
Yep. When this happened, this drove me absolutely crazy. So how does that all get back into how our brains are wired? This is fascinating to me, and I feel like people would if you have a better understanding of why your brain does what it does, you're gonna react, more appropriately to maybe something that your child's doing that's like freaking you out.
Yep. So basically what happens is when we are faced with a stressful or anxiety provoking situation, our brains sometimes go into this place called fight, flight, or freeze. So, it's a thing that happened. It developed as we were, coming up. And what happens is it's almost like a dinosaur is chasing you. Your body reacts in a certain way, like your pupils dilate and your muscles tense up and your stomach clenches and everything sort of tenses and gets ready to like either fight, you're ready to fight somebody, you're ready to flee, or you freeze. And those are the things that we're going to see in our kids and the things that we're seeing in ourselves. So some people want to get angry and fight, and some people just are like, I got to get out of here, and other people just freeze. And so that is a typical, that's our body's normal automatic reaction when we are faced with stress and anxiety. The thing that we need to do is try and get back down to rest and digest. And that's when your stomach is relaxed and your muscles are relaxed and your pupils are calm. Your whole body is calm and relaxed. And that is what, like, you're watching Netflix and relaxing and just sitting on the couch and just chilling out. And so in order to get from that like fight, flight, or freeze back down to rest and digest, what you need to do are strategies to help you calm down. So deep breathing is one that I always start with because your breathing automatically gets shallow when you get into fight, flight, or freeze. One way to tell your body to get out of that and get back down to rest and digest is to take deep breaths. And I know it sounds hokey, but it really does work. It just takes a little bit of time, especially if you're having a panic attack. Doing a breathing exercise like 4 breaths in, 4 counts in for a breath, holding it for 7 counts, and breathing out for 8 is especially effective for panic attacks. It's sort of related to some yoga breathing, that kind of thing, to help people get out of fight, flight, or freeze back down to rest and digest.
So the 4-7-8 breath is one that you actually reference in Coping Skills for Teens. And it is one that I first heard of. I read, I don't remember which book, but Dr. Andrew Weil has quite a few books to help people, not just with eating, but also with sort of like living a life that feels good. One of the first recommendations he had in the book that I read in particular was go out and buy some flowers, like get some beauty and greenery into your life. But he also shares about the 4-7-8 breath. And I was a yoga instructor and I had never heard of it. But I've done it every single morning and every single night since 2013.
Wow.
And I have found it to be probably the most helpful thing. And I sometimes do it when it isn't morning or night, but that's like my go-to. And I say to people who are starting it, it sounds so easy. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, you let go for 8. You breathe out for 8. And what I found was that I had to ramp up to being able to do 8 breaths. Like I had to start with fewer breaths because you get out of breath, things don't feel quite right. It's weird. But once you get it, gosh, does it ever feel good? And I think you're right. It shocks your system out of shallow breathing, out of fight or flight or freeze, and into, I love the expression rest and digest. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, because one of the other thing is, sometimes kids who have anxiety, they'll talk about stomach aches and they'll talk about like, I feel like I'm going to throw up or I feel like I'm going to be sick. It's because there's a lot of stuff like chemically going on in their bellies and their brains that's making that happen. They're not making that up. They are really feeling that
Yes.
like a nerve, like butterflies in their stomach,
Yeah.
and that sick feeling, that's real. And so to get out, that's a normal reaction when you're in fight, flight, or freeze. And then everything sort of starts going again when you're in rest and digest.
Yeah. I think that's so important to remember too. Just because kids are small doesn't mean that they don't have these feelings or these reactions. So if a kid is telling you, if they start shaking in anger, or if they start crying, or if they start doing some repetitive behavior or something else that feels weird or off or frightening, don't do the thing which it was certainly done with me, and it's probably done with a lot of listeners and viewers, and maybe you, Janine, where you try to jolly someone out of that. Like, you don't say you're not really feeling that. Like,
Right.
just because they're small, even though they're small, they're still experiencing these. And I think it's even harder for kids because they've never, in a lot of cases, never experienced something like that before, and they don't have words for it. So,
Right.
Janine, in the previous 4 iterations of our conversations on this show, I feel certain that it's come up, the idea that like what we need to do is validate their feelings and help them understand, yes, that's how you're feeling now, and I feel that way sometimes too. And wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I find when I help them name the feeling, it sort of dissipates the situation. Like,
Yes.
I'm noticing you're feeling really mad right now. Yes, I am mad. Okay, when you're ready, we can talk about it. And it sort of just set, like, you recognize them. They feel validated. They feel heard. Somebody sees that they're mad, and they're really mad
Yeah.
about something that it may not be something that would make us as adults mad. Doesn't mean that that's not real for them. They're mad.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
frustrated.
It is real for them.
It is real for them. And so you just acknowledge it, and then you figure out, okay, so then what can we do now? Like, what do you want to do? And I sometimes will offer, like, do you want to read a book, or do you want to write something down and crumple it up? Do you want to smush some Play-Doh? Like, here are some choices for you. What can you do? And it's your choice, whatever you want to do. Or you want to just sit here with me and just be mad and let me know when you're done being mad. I'm happy to do that too.
All that works. Yep. I love that idea. All right. So our time is short. I do have one question that I know we've talked about it, but I want to come back to it a little bit towards the end here. We are all homeschooling now, and like I said, we did discuss that earlier. But I'm wondering if you have any sort of final thoughts for approaching this homeschooling, quote unquote, in a way that feels most positive and conducive to learning. I know we talked about. I want to sort of put a little caveat in that this isn't about acquiring new mathematical skills or learning the difference between a contraction versus a full length English word or something like that. Like, it's not about these tiny little mechanical details. It's more, how can we approach this in a way that feels positive and conducive to overall learning, to something that's going to be helpful in our child's lives and educations going forward?
I think it's the perfect time to see what they're interested in, because so often we have to do what the expectations are, whatever Common Core says. But what if they just want to learn more about how Legos are made, or how cars are manufactured, or the life cycle of a butterfly, or what happens with plants with photosynthesis. If that's what they want to learn about, then you go with their interest and go there. Maybe they want to figure out how to write manga. Cool, let's do that. Let's figure that out. And just going with their interest, I think, is such a blessing that we have right now, which we don't necessarily always have. And here's the thing. I know that there are school systems out there that have kids, like, they're doing virtual lessons. They're on the computer like 3 hours a day. They're doing their lessons. I am thankful that we are not one of those. And so if that's what you have to do, because that's what the expectations are in your school system, that's what you got to do. But you have some freedom around those times to ask them, what do you want to learn about? What are you curious about? What are you interested in? What books do you want to read? Are there people you want to learn about from history? Are there things that you want to learn about nature? This is the opportunity to really dive into some of those things that they don't always get a chance to learn about. We have the time, we have the opportunity. Let's let them go wild and have a little bit of fun, exploring what they really want to learn about.
I love that. I mean, that is something that I cannot emphasize enough. Even if it is 3 hours of solid work that their schools are requiring of them, that's still a lot of time. That's not that can be a little bit more open-ended. And even if it's something like, I think a great jumping off point might be like, well, okay, well, lessons are over, but we all have to eat lunch. So let's, I read an article today in the Boston Globe by Kara Baskin, and I don't remember the name of the article, but it was basically about how in many women's lives, the moms are the people who are now, they're working from home, they're the cooks, there's no restaurants right now, right? There's sort of nobody else to do all these things, even though other people live with them. And so I think a lot of what I read in this article made me feel really like sad and frustrated, because it's the kids basically saying, like, even though dad is right there, he's he's all hidden away behind headphones or whatever. And so the kids are like, mom, 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 and the moms can't get a breath, can't stop. And so corralling kids to do things, and having, like, I think giving a kid the responsibility of helping with lunch or helping with cleanup or both.
Yes.
We've all got to eat. So let's make this a family thing where we work together. And a lot of parents will say, oh, it's just so much easier for me to do it myself. And that's a valid point. And I think maybe half the time you get to do that, right? But maybe the other half, you go out of your comfort zone and you say, all right, we're all living here together, so I'm going to show you how to do this part of this preparation or whatever, and clean up.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I do like to cook, and I will say sometimes. And sometimes dinner time is my time where I get to, like, really chill out, and I'm like, I'm listening to my podcast and I want nobody to talk to me while I'm making dinner. But lunch is the perfect time. And that's what, like, my kids make their sandwiches and we try and figure out what we're going to do. If we're going to, if we're making cinnamon rolls or we're making pizza, we do it together. I've asked them, like, are there things you want to learn how to make? Are there things that you want to make for the week? Or, like, what are your suggestions? These are the ingredients that we have. So let's be creative. Like, we don't have that. So what can we use instead? Can we replace that in the recipe? And so it's really interesting to sort of play with that, but to also make sure that other people in the house are taking those responsibilities on as well. Because you know what? That's part of raising kids. You want them to be able to do their own laundry. You want them to be able to clean the bathroom.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it all. And this right now, you can show them and then they can do it. So there's always I can't remember his name. Rick Lavoie. He's like, you show them how to do it. You have them watch you watch them do it, and then you let them do it on their own.
I love it. Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
I'm just writing down Rick Lavoie on chores. That's a great way to do that. Cool. Well, I think we're pretty well at the end of our time. Janine Halloran, it's been such a pleasure to have you on for our virtual summit, for our latest podcast episode, wherever this ends up in the feed. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything that you want to leave our listeners and watchers, viewers with?
just make sure that you take a few minutes for yourself as well. You matter too, and it's okay for you to go hide in the closet and have a cup of tea. Please do it because you need to do it. Because you are around people all the time now. And so in order for you to be able to continue to be a positive person in their lives, to be able to be the thermostat and not the thermometer, you're going to need to take a few minutes. So if you need to do Zumba in the basement, cool. If you need to go out for a walk, cool. If you need to hide in the closet and have a cheese stick by yourself, also cool.
I love it. Yes. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that's such a great one to end on. And I always like to end every show, first of all, saying thank you to everyone who has watched and listened. Jeannie and I both really, really appreciate that you are here with us today. And secondly, to give a huge thanks to our producer, the man who very often functions as a thermostat and not the thermometer. I think that's so cool. He is the 22-time winner of the Husband of the Year Award, the producer of our show. He's also the voice that you hear at the top of the show, and his name is Benjamin Kolp. I'm so grateful to him for everything that he does for us. And finally, again, thanks so much for watching and listening. We will see you next time.